Yeah, so I was a freelance photographer for nearly 10 years before I launched Freelancer Club. And my journey as a freelance photographer was fraught with ups and downs, very much learning from my mistakes. I was known as an accidental freelancer. So that's somebody that just falls into freelancing without any plan or training or intention. So it was very clear from the get-go that there was a lack of support and information generally for freelancers, certainly online, but even amongst peers. And as all my other friends had traditional jobs, there really wasn't anybody for me to speak to or ask questions when it came to issues of freelancing. And I remember a company that we launched prior to the Freelancer Club was a production company. And the general concept was we would hire incredibly interesting spaces, a cathedral or a strip club or a warehouse, depending on the theme that we wanted to create. And we would hire some of the best and most prestigious talent in the fashion industry. So we had partnerships with incredible modeling agencies, some of the top photographers, hair and makeup, and stylists who would bring in a theme that coincided with the venue. And the idea is that individuals who wanted to set up as a freelancer could come in and shoot with our crew and produce incredible work that they wouldn't ordinarily be able to do. And at the end of the shoots, we would often sit down with them and look at the work, and they would ask us what they should do next. And so it became a very natural process for us to coach and advise future freelancers or early stage freelancers about their business. And those two elements, along with a significant incident that happened to me when I got screwed over by a company for 11 grand, combined to have this eureka moment where we felt we should do something about it and set up a business in some capacity to help. So myself and a business partner at the time, we jotted down a list of all the key areas that we felt freelancers needed help with on a whiteboard. And one by one, we tried to solve those problems on a platform. We then brought in a bunch of our friends who would challenge the UX of the platform, and we would ask them to navigate different pages so that we could figure out where we needed to improve. And that really was the starting point for the Freelancer Club. So this was my first venture into a platform, into building a digital product. All my businesses beforehand had an element of a digital presence, but were pretty hands-on. The one prior to Freelancer Club was the production company, and prior to that, we worked in events. So there was always some tangible element, and the idea of launching a purely digital brand was daunting, to say the least. It's a very peculiar process because you hire a developer and you put the company together, and one day you switch it on, and all of the marketing and the launch and the prep that you do all leads to this one moment where you have your fingers crossed that it works. And I remember distinctly sitting at my kitchen table, and I can't quite remember why I was there, but I fear that we may have been moving office right when we had to launch, and that came as a surprise to us. So we were each in our respective homes, myself and my business partner, when the site went live, and both of us continued to refresh the site to see if anybody had bothered to click on it and ultimately sign up. It was a complete unknown, and we were really taking a punt on whether this type of business model would work. And thankfully, in the first week or so, we saw pretty decent numbers. Now, bear in mind, we were still less than 100 users and certainly less than 100 paying users on the website. And so it was incredibly nerve-wracking to see if that was something that might take off. So when we launched the company, we were adamant to do so with a strong policy on unpaid work. And this is predominantly because it was something we were always annoyed at as freelancers, getting asked to work for free. Often you'd be asked to work for exposure or experience or the promise of paid work in the future. And also the personal experience that I'd gone through with the company ripping me off, we really wanted to make a point that we would never on the job board of the platform post unpaid work. So we launched with a campaign called No Free Work. And it started out as a Twitter hashtag and absolutely blew up very quickly. I remember on 2 occasions, No Free Work trended #1 on Twitter. So we knew we were onto something when we started to trend on Twitter for the hashtag No Free Work, and the feedback we were getting from other freelancers was incredibly passionate. And we could tell that there was a big movement towards ending the exploitation of unpaid work in the freelance business, and that it was rife. So what we decided to do was make it a strong policy not to allow any unpaid work onto the website. We also ran a substantial survey with over 1,000 freelancers, asking them if they had ever accepted unpaid work, and if they had, whether it benefited their career or not. And the results were just mind-blowing. And we realized that on average, unpaid work was costing each freelancer over $5,000 a year, that almost every freelancer that we interviewed had accepted unpaid work at some stage in their career, and that the vast majority, over 75%, said that it negatively impacted their lives and their freelance business. So we started to make a point of raising this as a campaign. We contacted another company called Ipse, who we partnered with, and we decided to put together a think tank to develop a policy that we would bring to government and try to get over the line to see if we could change legislation. So we put together a group of us, we drafted up a proposal, and we made it all the way into the Houses of Lords, where we were able to present a proposal to change legislation. Unfortunately, Brexit came along, and that put our proposal to the bottom of the list on the agenda, but it did give us a huge amount of opportunity and exposure to be able to talk about it on the ground. We had a number of national newspapers approach us and write about the topic. We were able to appear on podcasts and radio talking about the issues of unpaid work, and it became a real staple for Freelancer Club. It's our calling card and what we are still known for by a lot of individuals in the policy sector. And that was something that we found opened a lot of doors. It is incredible that when you become popular because of a campaign, how many people reach out to you. So we had requests for appearances and talks and partnerships from all manner of sectors. In fact, I remember one fashion company that will remain nameless approached us to say, could you come and talk to our group of aspiring fashionistas and deliver a workshop, and we'll give you that exposure and connection to the brand. I don't think they had fully read the brief when they asked us that. But that was to become something of great importance as we traveled through the Freelancer Club journey. Yeah, we had a lot of different offices throughout the years. I remember one was a gallery where a couple of incredible furniture makers, although you could call them contemporary artists, the furniture was so beautifully designed. They had this very large white space where they would showcase their furniture to potential buyers. And I guess they must have needed a little extra cash, or perhaps they just wanted somebody in the space while they were away. They used to travel quite a bit. And from that, we ended up taking a few desks in the gallery space where we would conduct meetings, and we would have our staff and our team who were working full time for us. And it was bizarre because we used to take meetings on a gorgeous designed pine wood table with chandeliers overhanging and Damien Hirst paintings on the wall. And it was great. It was such a good talking point and such an incredible space to be able to work in. After that, we moved to a really interesting spot under the archways in Shoreditch, which was connected to a nightclub. And the only way in and out of our office was through the club. So if we had had a late meeting, I remember many times coming out at 9, 10 o'clock, having had a 3 or 4 hour presentation meeting or a financial projection conversation with a very fuzzy head filled with numbers, walking through a nightclub with banging techno music, and from time to time stopping to have a pint. But that was an amazing experience because we really bonded as a team. We were able to figure out who we are culturally and how we wanted to conduct ourselves. And it wasn't long after that we thought we should probably start practicing what we preach, insofar as our team, rather than be a traditional full-time 9 to 5 structure, should become a distributed model. And so that's what we did over the space of around 6 to 8 months. We gently transitioned from a traditional 9 to 5 full-time setup into a completely distributed model where all of our team freelanced, were able to take on other clients, and could travel the world and work from wherever they want. And that model still stands today. Our team are dotted in different parts of the world, and they work on a freelance basis. And we have an incredible culture where we're still able to connect with each other and support each other, not just within the Freelancer Club and the projects and collaborations that we run here, but just through general freelance life. So we have our own internal freelance community, as well as the wider 70,000 plus freelance members that we have on the platform. To really emphasize the element of community, we started to produce in-person events, and we called them Showcase. The idea behind it was we wanted to celebrate the work of our freelance members, and we also thought it would be a good idea to bring down some of the hiring clients. So we had startups and corporates all interested in hiring creative freelancers come down to these events. We started to formalize that a little bit more over time, and we decided to bring in an element of matchmaking so that the clients could each take a booth or a table, and we would systematically bring the talent down to meet them so that everybody who was interested in meeting potential hiring clients got that opportunity to pitch their ideas and show their portfolio. And then we started to spice them up a little bit, and we took elements from the previous production company into the showcase events. And I remember one particular event where we wanted to theme it as a cabaret. So we hired out a strip club in East London, and we brought in burlesque dancers and fireworks. We had a makeup station that would give everybody a glow up who turned up. And our community, who are pretty out there at the best of times, really didn't disappoint. They showed up with all sorts of outfits and gear to liven up the entire event. But what really made it stand out was our partner at the time was an accountancy company. And for some reason, this did not put them off. And they wanted to come down and give accountancy clinics at the event. And I just remember looking across the dance floor at two men in grey suits, looking incredibly serious, talking about profit and loss and cash flow to an individual wearing nothing but butterfly wings and glitter on her face. And that really summed it up for us. That's the community that we had, and we love that juxtaposition and contrast between those two worlds. The pandemic hit us pretty hard. As you can imagine, it hit every company pretty hard. We were in a fairly unfortunate position because of our distributed model and the way our company was structured. It meant that we were unable to gain any financial aid from the government. And moreover, our members, who predominantly deliver a face-to-face service really got hit. For some of them, their entire client base got wiped out in a matter of days. And it was a very poignant time for the club. I remember the entire team, who were all in our individual bubbles, were on the phones more or less every day for the guts of 2 or 3 months, calling all of our members one by one, speaking to them about what they were going through and coming up with solutions and ideas as to how they could generate income online. And that was a very, very difficult time for the company, as you can imagine. But that aside, just hearing the stories of so many freelancers struggling to that extent, it was heartbreaking. The strange element that occurred simultaneously was the speed in which the government was putting together a support package for the self-employed. And what eventually became known as SICE was something we had to push and lobby for incredibly hard. Ourselves and a number of other prominent platforms bonded together, and we started to generate noise and push out a campaign to try and support the forgotten freelancers. And whilst our company was absolutely ravaged and borderline on its knees, we were getting asked to appear on radio, publications, on podcasts, and you name it. Every day we would be asked to go and speak about this issue, which was ironic because we had never been more popular in the history of the club, and yet we had never gone through such a difficult period commercially. And what came of that eventually was the financial support package that got rolled out to a lot of freelancers, but not everybody. And some of the stories that we were hearing at the time were really desperate and quite sad, with makeup artists sneaking out in the middle of the night during the pandemic to other clients, to their homes to deliver their service, jeopardizing their health and the health of their clients, because they were so desperate to generate any form of income to be able to pay the rent or to feed their kids. It was a really traumatic time for a lot of people. And it did generate a lot of anger within the community as to how there was such a disconnect between the government, the rhetoric, what they were saying, and the realities of freelancers. And that's been something we have desperately been trying to change ever since. And now with a new government in place in the UK, we are more hopeful that we can build those bridges and create those connections to try and have a much stronger bond and representation when it comes to freelance support, so that we don't ever have to go through that again. One of the big legacies of the pandemic was our educational division. So prior to COVID, we had been asked to come in and deliver talks and workshops, often one-offs, to different universities and institutions. But the pandemic really forced us to look at how we could deliver value online, so digitally. And that gave us the time and the inclination to build up and develop an entire new division of the company. So we recorded an online business accelerator. We had the opportunity to reach out to some truly incredible thought leaders and educators who I don't think we ever would have had a chance to connect with if it wasn't for the fact we were all sitting at home, a lot of people not knowing what to do. That gave us an opportunity to create some incredible content that ended up being the key resources within our educational sector, and something we use today to help support aspiring freelancers. And that's been built up over time, and we've been incredibly fortunate to have some wonderfully supportive partners in universities, schools, and in the business sector. And today we have over 35 partners We deliver multiple hours every month, and we manage to help support aspiring freelancers and the next generation of solopreneurs, something that we are incredibly proud of. Yeah, the advantage, I guess, of having such a passionate team who I trust implicitly to run different parts of the company means my time can be freed up a little bit to focus on areas that I'm very passionate about. And one of those is certainly introducing the concept of freelancing to individuals that may not ordinarily have that support. And we decided to do that through a campaign called Rise Freelancer. And the lofty ambition is to provide support to 1 million individuals by 2026, a target that we are on course to achieve. And we do that really in conjunction with local authorities, with charities, and with the educational institutions that we partner with. We also have some incredible supporters who help sponsor and back a lot of those programs. And that campaign has really made a huge impact on the lives of a lot of individuals, something that we want to keep working on and bring over to the US, which is where we expanded into earlier this year. You know, we start to think about the autonomy that freelancing can give an individual, how somebody that may not have the capacity to work in a traditional environment, in that idea that one size fits all, but go and explore freelancing as a potential way to generate an income on their own terms. It's an incredibly powerful tool for a growing audience. And if we think about the data at the moment and what the projections look like in regards to the number of freelancers entering the market, the figures are staggering. In the US alone, they're expecting to have more freelancers than employees by 2027. And we're starting to see a huge increase in the number of 16 to 24-year-olds who are keen to explore freelancing as a viable career path. And all of this information, I think, needs something like the Rise Freelancer campaign. It needs support and the scaffolding around each individual, that they're doing things safely, that they understand business principles, that they have the right mindset, and that they have a community of other freelancers that they can lean on when they need it. And we see freelancing very much as the present and the future. And it's essential that we're able to support that cohort the best way we can. Yeah, a really exciting time at the moment. We launched in the US earlier this year, starting in New York, and then we decided that we would expand our educational division across America. And that process has been incredibly exciting. We are talking with some very interested parties who I think align with our values and are keen to push our mission with us, which could open up some incredible opportunities for aspiring freelancers. We've also been delivering talks and presentations in Ireland, which is our gateway into Europe. And our plans will be to expand further into different countries as we start to learn more about the freelancing cultures and appetites throughout Europe and the States. Yeah, it's strange to think about Freelancer Club being 10 years old. It's a long time to dedicate to one thing. And I guess what's enabled us to continually reinvent and stay motivated has been that ability to feed off the energy and inspiration of the community, of the Freelancer Club team, and keep changing things up. I think the educational division has made a huge impact on the company and on me personally, to want to stay the course and keep trying to make a difference. The work we're doing within policy is tough and it's slow going, and that in itself drives us on and wants us to stay at it and make sure we see some form of outcome. And so the next 10 years, I think, will be focused largely around those three pillars. We'd love to see an international freelance community come together and start to look at cultures globally and how freelancing is huge in areas like South America and the Middle East. We want to try and connect those dots and bring our communities together so that we can learn from each other and possibly open doors and opportunities for freelancers to be able to travel and work and connect, all under the Freelancer Club community and concept. I think from an education perspective, we would really like to see a lot more investment in freelance support at an earlier stage. So we are talking to institutions within further education, and we would ideally like to see some form of entrepreneurial training and support baked into schools and colleges, and of course for more universities to take up the mantle and recognize that there is a very high demand for freelance support. More and more individuals are choosing this lifestyle, and I think it's our duty to ensure that they are prepared for the realities of freelancing. From a policy perspective, we'd love to replicate something that they've successfully rolled out in the States, which is called the Freelancing Isn't Free Bill. And this was an act passed in New York and now across other states that gives freelancers more legal protections. So things like mandatory contracts or double damages if a client is found not paying a freelancer for their work. And these are not only legal protections that support the self-employed, but they signal that freelancing is a viable career path. And it still blows my mind with such high demand and the vast number of individuals that have some form of side hustle or freelance business that there is still a reluctance from certain stakeholders not to get on board with that idea and truly offer support to a community that is shaping and contributing to the economy and to our lives in so many ways.